coming. On behalf of Walter and myself and all of the employees of GIS, we welcome you here today. It's good to see a good roll-up, so that's good. Normally it's as well. I'll formally introduce Peter in a minute. Just a couple of housekeeping things. If you need to go to the blue, follow the blue signs. There's signs out that back door there. And the program today is simply Peter will deliver his technology update, and then it's time for questions and answers, and then we'll stand around and have a discussion over a drink again. So that's pretty simple. Just about Where Do IT, just some of you we haven't seen as much of as we'd like, and some of you we see plenty of, and that's very good. Thanks for coming. But a couple of months ago I developed what's called an elevator statement for Where Do IT, and I just thought I'd read that out to you just so that it gives you a bit of an update of what we think we are. So Where Do IT is a privately owned Australia and New Zealand company employing about 70 people now in Australia, New Zealand and North America. We say we achieve better management of utility assets such as power lines, water pipes, gas mains and other assets where location and connectivity are important. Our clients are the major utilities in electricity, gas, telecoms and water, and our expertise is in geospatial information systems, and our people are very clever, well-trained specialists. So there you go, that's what GIS is all about. Now a bit of news, Justin Elbridge, who will be known to many of you, he leads our adjusted development team and sales team. Adjusted's a package that grew out of Walter's PhD. It's now been going very well for us in North America, and as of after Christmas, but before the new year, Justin and his family are relocating to Denver, and we've set up Where Do IT Inc. in North America, and we're looking to capitalise on the opportunities over there with that. And as I said earlier, we've obviously still got our office in Auckland, we've got an office now in Sydney, and we've got a presence in Perth. So things are looking reasonably good for Where Do IT, and we're very confident about the future. So today is all about having Peter Batty here to give you a talk about the latest technology trends in the GIS area. Peter may be known to some of you, in fact he definitely is known to some of you, because some of you are GE and former colleagues of Peter's. Peter was involved in the early days of GE Small World, and he then went on to be one of the founding partners and still is a director of Ubisense, and in there somewhere along the line he was the Chief Technology at Integrate. Peter has a unique insight into GIS that very few people have, and he's maintained that interest and he's sharpened his focus in understanding the technology and being able to influence the way it's developed. So without any further ado, I'd like you to welcome Peter Batty.
Thanks, Chris. No sleeping out there. We can't put the lights on just at the back, can we? It's all or nothing, is it?
It's all or nothing, yeah. Modern energy saving place.
All right. That's probably good. So anyway, I'll talk for probably 30-40 minutes about what I call the geospatial revolution, the changes that are going on in the industry. And it's always nice to be down under here. I've got a lot of friends down here, and I always appreciate the warm welcome that you get. Waiting for me at the airport when I arrived. And of course, I would stoop so low as to mention the cricket that you might find a few slides of sneaked into the presentation as we go through. Retaliating for the last 15 years of pain. So anyway, I'm going to talk about the revolution that's going on in the industry. That picture actually reminded me of this picture, the cricket world too, but we'll try not to mention that too much. But then I'll talk also about how the nature of geospatial data is changing. It's becoming much more kind of multimedia, not just pointing slides and areas like it used to be. I'll talk about crowdsourcing, which is a powerful idea that's changing a lot of things about the way that we create and maintain spatial data. I'll talk about the cloud, which is something you hear a lot about in IT in general, as well as in the geospatial industry more specifically. So let's talk about the revolution. So GIS has really been a specialised backroom technology for many years. It looked a bit like this when I started. I was working on IBM mainframes, not quite that old vintage perhaps. But regardless of the actual technology, it's still, in many organisations, still this pretty specialised backroom technology. It's not pervasive, it's not, it requires quite specialised skills. And so, while we're talking about that, I thought I'd just briefly show my perspective on the current main players in the utility space. Utility and telecoms is probably where most of you folks are from. As Chris said, I've really been basically a CTO position at Small World and Intergraph, and I know Esri very well from having competed against them for a long time. And I won't go into huge detail here, but I guess the main message here is I still really think that Small World is the strongest system for kind of core network modeling, applications, and having a strong utility focus and scalability, those kind of things. Intergraph has some of the same strengths, but I think is not quite as strong in a number of those areas. And then Esri is obviously the leading player in broader GIS, and their strengths are more in the kind of non-network applications. And I think I'd say none of them have really invested very heavily in new technologies, which is I'll talk about. It is kind of a challenge, and we'll get more into that. And so I think one of the things that I've been looking at, and I think we collectively need to look at, is how do we bring in those kind of new technologies to complement what the traditional methods are doing. So anyway, a few years back, about 5 years back, I guess, this elephant wandered into our little industry, and that elephant's called Google. And they're certainly not the only ones who've driven a lot of change, but I'd say they're really the most influential ones in the major changes that we've seen in the broader geospatial industry in the last few years. And basically, location is now really pervasive and simple in consumer applications, from in-car navigation systems to Google Earth and Maps and iPhones and all those kind of things. And this would really recommend if you haven't read it. And his basic thesis is that in any technology market, high-tech or low-tech, the requirements of the end users increase at a certain pace, but the ability of technology to meet those requirements increases at a faster pace. So you have the sort of incumbent technologies, which after a period of time reach the top of that range of requirements. So when a new release comes out, there's nothing dramatically new in it in general. And a simple example is Microsoft Word, say. I mean, we'll use 5 or 10% of the functionality, and when a new release comes out, it's no big deal. And arguably the GIS industry is in that sort of state of maturity. When Small World 4.3 comes out, it has some nice extra features, but it's not dramatically changing what you can do in general. But then in the meantime, you have these things, this idea of disruptive technology. So initially they start out being too simple for that mainstream market, but they increase in capabilities over time as well. And then you reach this interesting point in the middle where suddenly they become applicable to the mainstream market. And that's very much the case in the geospatial industry right now. So then you start having the option of moving to these newer, simpler systems with certain applications. Now, utilities and telecoms are certainly at the very complex end of the spectrum in terms of the range of GIS applications. So I certainly don't see the traditional players going anywhere, going away anytime soon, and probably never. I mean, there are some very complex applications there, but as we'll talk about, I think there's a lot of ways you can have these new systems into the mix. Another way of looking at this phenomenon is the idea of consumer-driven innovation. So this is something that Gartner Group talk about. So it used to be the case that new technology innovations would come in government or big business and then eventually trickle down into the consumer space. But these days it's often the case because consumer markets have grown so much that new innovations happen first in the consumer space and then work their way back into business. And the iPhone is probably one good example of that, and the iPad. They both started out focused on consumers, but getting more into business. And another good example I saw of that was a few years back with Ubisense. I was at a training and simulation conference, military training and simulation conference, and I went there thinking that I'd see all this cool stuff from the military, cool technology that I hadn't seen before, but actually the main thing of that conference was how all those simulation vendors were starting to use things like Xboxes and PlayStations as their platform of choice, because that would just outstrip what they could do with their more specific software. But still, I've been preaching this message for quite a long time to kind of traditional GIS audiences, if you like, and I still get a lot of this response. So, well, that's great, but this really isn't what we do. This is just simple web mapping. It's not real GIS like we do. And so, to sort of try and persuade you that that's not the case, I'll break and do a little quick demo at this point. So, about 6 months or so ago, I've been talking about this kind of stuff for quite a while, but I actually kind of got stuck in and started developing a new product that we call My World that kind of combines Google Maps with Small World. And I just want to give you a quick demo of that, just to give you a flavour of the kind of things I'm talking about. So here you can see small world data overlaid on top of Google Maps. Typical, this happens to be an electric demo data set. And you can see performances generally very quick. So we can zoom in, we can toggle maps on and off. The base map on this one, as with a lot of utility maps in the US, is quite sparse. So just adding the Google base mapping gives you a lot more nice context. We can click on anything on the map. So there I can see all the attributes of the pole that come from Small World, display more or less of those. And then down at the bottom here, this picture is actually a live Google Street View, so we can click and look around there. So that's kind of a nice aspect of this. Part of this is just making it simpler and easier to access your data, but then in other places you add in functionality you wouldn't have in your traditional GIS, like within Google as the mix. So here we can see that street view. You can do nice things like overlay things within the street view. So if I mouse over that, I can see the customer who lives there, the customer who lives there, and you click, you get the full attributes. And we can see the poles go down the street, that kind of thing. So we've had a lot of interest in that for applications like pole ownership, joint usage, and things like that. Another thing that we've worked on is making search very easy. So you can just type in a value and you get this sort of autocomplete. So you don't have to know anything technical, you don't have to know table names or field names or anything like that. So there's a poll. Another thing you can get is the Google imagery backdrops, of course, which some utilities have but others don't. So let's just search for a couple of other things. If I try a different number, this one is an asset ID rather than a poll number, so that finds me a different poll. I can search, say, for customer name. So I'll pick that one. And then you can see the customer residence, that kind of thing. So the street view is really kind of nice for those sort of things. And then the final thing I'll show you, just to give a brief idea, is something to illustrate the idea of mashups. We like to talk about enterprise mashups. So you hear a lot about mashups on the web, and the idea of that is bringing data from a lot of different systems onto a map to sort of bring that information together in one place. So here we can pull data from other enterprise systems, things like showing current outages here, showing truck locations. And so these are using very lightweight, simple integration mechanisms that are very quick to do. Again, using ideas really pulled from the web. And actually, the very final thing I'll show you is just the idea of taking advantage of georeferenced photos. So I just walked along a street in Denver and took several pictures with my iPhone. And all these smartphones now have a GPS in them, so you can see lots of information about these poles, even larger. But you can see quite a lot of detail on the pole configuration, that kind of thing, which may well not be stored accurately in the GIS. And so that's something that I feel is quite underused. I mean, it's just so simple to get your employees, whenever they're installing or maintaining or inspecting